I'm Lee C. Camp. This is No Small Endeavor, exploring what it means to live a good life.
I left home when I was just shy of 15. And in another city, I don't know that I would have survived that experience.
That's Grammy-winning singer, actress, activist Allison Russell talking about the 6 months she spent living on the streets in Montreal after leaving an abusive home.
My little alternative school was across the street from McGill University. So I would go sit at Café Croissant Royal and play chess until 6 a.m. with the McGill students. There was the Marie Reine du Monde, this little basilica close to my school that was open early and open late, and that had all kinds of little nooks and crannies with velvet cushions where I would go sleep and pretend I was praying, and go sleep there. In the summertime, we had this gorgeous cemetery that was incredibly safe late at night where I would sleep in the summertime.
Navigating such acute challenges, Allison says the music and art that surrounded her changed her perspective on the world.
I would go to the Montreal Jazz Fest. It goes for a month long, and it's just free concerts. I would go to Shakespeare in the Park, we had free repertory theater. I just was constantly having it reinforced to me that there were other ways to live. When my particular nuclear family was unbearable and dangerous and violent, I got the glimmer that it didn't have to be that way because of all of the amazing kind of alternative possibilities that I was seeing in these other places.
Allison's mother was suffering from undiagnosed schizophrenia. Her adoptive father was deeply abusive, and she was in and out of foster care throughout her childhood. Somehow, through this turbulent upbringing, she taught herself to play the clarinet, guitar, banjo, and began busking in her late teens. That led to nearly 2 decades touring and performing collaboratively in independent bands, sleeping on floors to make ends meet, and all the while working through the trauma she carried.
Those of us who survive chronic abuse in childhood, it can go differently. You can be running from it your whole life, which often leads to self-medicating in really destructive ways and destructive behaviors. I think I've gone the opposite way of really clinically almost remembering things in great detail and trying to face them head on and accept that everything that happened is a part of who I am now. Not that it should have happened, but it did happen.
She confronted that reality very publicly in 2021 by releasing her first solo album, Outside Child. It's a deeply personal reflection on her early years, full of songs lauded both for their defiance and their joy. That record earned her 3 Grammy nominations and catapulted her into the spotlight.
For me, the self-medication was the music. Luckily, it's a less harmful.
Right. Of ones to choose.
It's
a pretty great one to choose. Yeah.
It's a less harmful habit. I ran away with the circus, and I just kept running.
Everything that I've known, let it go out, let it roll out with the tide. I can't think of a thing that hasn't been shot through with pain, like a nightingale's song in the dead of the night. Goodbye.
I think songwriting for me was and continues to be really cathartic and has been a way to process the pain of that history.
Soon there followed a Grammy-winning second album, The Returner, then her Broadway debut as Persephone in the hit musical Hadestown. Now, having just returned from Broadway to Nashville following her second run in Hadestown, Allison is finishing a memoir.
None of us is getting through this mortal life without experiencing a lot of pain and trauma. That's just part of it. Being born is painful and scary and hard, and part of why we don't remember it, I'm sure. And we're going to die. We know this. But we have this brief and glorious time on this living planet, the only living planet that we know of in the entire universe, which, whatever our belief system, that is a remarkable and magical fact. We are here, and it's so improbable and amazing. And it's so joyful.
Today, my joyful interview with Allison Russell. Hello, friends. Lee Seacamp here. There is, as you may have noticed, no shortage of content in the world. Opinions endless, outrage plentiful. Deep wisdom and thoughtful perspective slightly harder to come by. That's part of why we created the NSC Notebook. It's our weekly email from the world of no small endeavor with reflections on a good life, behind-the-scenes insight into our interviews, and quotes that stuck with me long after those conversations ended. You'll also get a curated list of what I'm reading, watching, and listening to, books, movies, music, and other things I think are actually worth your time. It comes to your inbox every Tuesday, completely free. So if you'd like one less thing to doom scroll and one more thing to actually enjoy, sign up for the NSC Notebook at nosmallendeavor.com. Starting something new is hard and honestly can be terrifying. When we started No Small Endeavor, there were plenty of what ifs. What if no one listens? What if it doesn't work? But sometimes the thing worth doing is precisely the thing that requires you to take a leap. And if you're starting a business, Shopify helps make that leap a little less daunting. Shopify, the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. And you can also get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you with email and social media campaigns. If you get stuck, Shopify is always around to share advice with their award-winning 24/7 customer support. It's time to turn those what-ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/NSC. Go to shopify.com/NSC. That's shopify.com/NSE.
Hi, friends. It's Annie F. Downs here, and I am so beyond excited to share with you that I have a brand new TV show called I Gotta Ask that begins airing Thursday, May 28th on The Wonder Project, which you can find through your Amazon Prime Video app. You may have heard of The Wonder Project because they're the ones who brought you The House of David, and I am so honored and honestly have zero chill that I get to partner with them to make this dream come true. I love how Wonder Project is not only creating great original TV and movies that audiences can experience together, but also curating content via their subscription on Prime Video filled with meaningful stories. The first 2 episodes of my talk show, I Gotta Ask, premiere on May 28th, followed by 2 episodes each on June 4th and June 11th. And every episode, I sit down with a group of friends, some experts in their fields and some thought leaders, some just my real life people. And we talk about things like, why is dating so hard in 2026? Or how do I build a business? What do I do with fear and anxiety? And so many more questions that I just had to ask. I cannot wait to hear what you think. You can subscribe today at igottaask.com.
Allison Russell.
Lee.
It's great to see you again.
Great to see you too.
Thanks for having us here to your home.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
You've been writing a memoir.
I have been writing a memoir. Yes, I have.
So I'm wondering if you've developed any sort of favorite metaphor for trying to describe the process of writing a memoir.
It's like being a ghost in your own life. It's very Dickensian, I think. You're all the ghosts. You're the ghosts of the past, the future. And it's sometimes difficult to stay rooted in the present, I think, in the midst of it. And I don't know if I know how to do it. It's my first time attempting it. You know, my first record under my own name was called Outside Child. And it is a fairly autobiographical record. And this memoir grew out of that record. The reason I'm writing it at all is because my wonderful publicist, Meg Helsel, has a best friend, Meg Thompson, who is a literary agent. And Meg Thompson got obsessed with the Outside Child album and the fact that in her ears it was already 3/4 of the way to being a memoir.
Yeah.
And she asked me if I would consider writing a book proposal. And so I did it almost as an exercise, but then it got snapped up in a preempt. And suddenly there's the reality of now you have to write a book. You were contractually obligated to write this book. It's very internal work. And what I've found is that it's really difficult to balance that with the much more external work of music performance, of Broadway, of mothering, of showing up in community, in real life. What I've found is it's been a bit of a struggle between those modalities, you know.
Are you finding in that process, you know, I've read memoirs in which there seems to be some sort of centering metaphor or recurring motif that kind of holds it all together. And then others I've read who just seem to be much more content or at ease with just telling a story. What's kind of your approach for the way you're approaching this?
I mean, I don't know that I can even answer that fully yet because I'm still in process. Yeah. But one of the things that's emerging from this memoir is stories of mothers and daughters. I am a mother now myself. And going back through the matriarchy of my own people, that has been something that's come up. I didn't meet my Black family until I was 30 years old. And so I've been kind of excavating that side of things and tracing back as far as I can on the paternal side. Yeah. Because, of course, those of us from the African diaspora that were brought against our will to these various shores, to the Caribbean, to the U.S., everywhere. A lot of the history is lost, of course, but my family's been able to trace as far back as a woman named Kashiba, who was sold off what at the time was called the Gold Coast of Ghana and survived the Middle Passage and made her way to Trinidad and then to Grenada and founded my paternal line. So a lot of the memoir is to do with the relationships that carry us that we didn't even know we had, and also the power of imagination and the importance of, in my life, of art in surviving it all.
It's conventional wisdom often that some of the things that we do later in life are obviously rooted with some of our childhood experiences. And so I wonder for you, the manner in which music, making music, performing music, writing music has been so central to you. How do you locate that in your childhood experience?
My first memories are of music. My mom is a really beautiful piano player. And we had a very troubled relationship. She was very young when she had me. She was a child herself, teenage mom. And I was taken from her care when she was very young and placed in foster care. But we would have visits. You know, I would be allowed to visit my mom on weekends. But those are the most vivid memories. And we would go to my grandma's house, which I now realize is probably because she had to be under supervision. So we would go to my grandma's house. And my grandma had a piano, and I would listen to my mom play piano. Those are my strongest, earliest memories. And she would play along to her favorite albums, to Joni Mitchell. And, you know, she loved Ladies of the Canyon and Clouds. I remember hiding under the piano and listening to her play along and watching her feet on the pedals. And music was just very alive to me. And when relationships were difficult or when communication was difficult with words, that was just very clear to me on a sort of sublingual level how just comforting music was.
Any memories of the earliest song you remember her playing?
I remember her playing along to the whole Ladies of the Canyon record. And I remember the song For Free because that was the first time I heard the clarinet. It's a beautiful, it's Joni sort of musing on, here she is this popular singer and she hears a man busking on the clarinet in the street and has the thought to go sing with him, but the light changes and life goes on. But it's this beautiful, it's a beautiful kind of timeless melody. You know, I slept last night in a good hotel. I went shopping today for jewels. The wind rushed around in the dirty town, and the children let out from the schools. I was standing on a noisy corner, waiting for the walking green. Across the street he stood, and he played real good on his clarinet for free. And at the end of that song, there's this gorgeous coda, the busker playing the clarinet. And I remember being like electrified by the sound of the clarinet, you know. And then a full circle all these years later, I play clarinet in Joni Mitchell's band, you know. So
amazing.
Yeah. Music was always there. My grandma was a Scottish Presbyterian and sang in the church choir and played piano too, but loved to sing and always had the radio going or CDs that she loved and would just sing all the time. And she knew also a wealth of creepy, violent lullabies and murder ballads and things from the old country from Scotland that I adored.
There are some
they're amazing.
Vicious, yeah.
And but also I think of them as the hidden canon, you know, these things that are passed down matrilineally that don't get recorded for the anonymous distilled experiences of generations, you know, and oftentimes it's dealing with violence, it's dealing with broken homes, it's dealing with abusive women, which I was living and my mother was living. There's something very powerful about that, you know, these songs that are like little roadmaps for how to navigate it.
So you left home just shy of 15, spent time on the streets of Montreal. How many years were you living that way?
Really precariously like that, I would say about half a year. And then I moved in with some other girls in my high school. We got a little apartment on Dubouillon Street, Allie and Siobhan and Kim, and we called our apartment The Womb. And it became a hub for all of our little misfit friends. And we all kind of grew each other up there and figured out how to do things like go grocery shopping and cook. And
so you're how old when you move in with those girls?
16 when I moved in with the girls. Yeah. And then we had each other. And we still have each other. To this day, we're still really close.
Wow.
All of us.
What a gift.
Yeah, they all came to my last run of Hadestown. We had a big reunion. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you think back to that, especially 6-month season of precarity, any particular individuals, their kindness or presence stand out in your memory?
Yes, my first girlfriend, Persephone. You know, she was a force of stability and unconditional love and accepting me as I was and an emotional stabilizing. I think I would have been hard pressed to get through that time without her. Yeah. You know, I'd sneak into her basement window and stay overnights at her place sometimes.
You're listening to No Small Endeavor and our conversation with Allison Russell. You can get show notes for this episode in your podcast app or wherever you listen. These notes include links to resources mentioned in the episode and a full transcript. We also have a free weekly newsletter called the NSC Notebook. There I riff on themes and behind the scenes goings on. You can subscribe to that newsletter for free by going to our website, nosmallendeavor.com/newsletter. We'd love for you to join us. A wonderful reading community around the NSC Notebook. Coming up, Allison and I discuss finding her biological father, becoming a mother herself, and the making of her first solo album, Outside Child. Hey friends, one of the things we've learned from listeners is that many of you don't want to just listen to these conversations. You'd like to go deeper than that. That's part of why we created NSC Plus, which is our subscriber community, where we share additional conversations, reflections, and bonus material connected to the themes of the show, especially looking for ways that this can relate to the practice of your own life. Recently, we started a new series called Reflections on a Good Life, in which I share brief reflections arising from some of our favorite NSC interviews. You might think of it as a weekly 7-minute episode in which I pull out some pearl of wisdom from an interview and suggest a question on which you might choose to meditate to further cultivate some goodness in your own life. We've also launched a new bonus series called Books You Should Know. In the first installment, I sat down with Dr. Lee Warren for a conversation that quickly became one of my favorite interviews I've done in quite a while. It's all waiting for you over at NSC Plus. And just as importantly, NSC Plus is what helps keep No Small Endeavor on the air and available for free to everyone. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month, and if these conversations have been meaningful to you, we would truly love to have you join us. You can learn more at nosmallendeavor.com or click the link in the show notes and join NSC Plus.
You know, I'm really passionate about making decisions that align with your faith and your values, especially when it comes to your family. And one area where that can feel really challenging right now is healthcare. Costs keep rising, and it's hard to feel confident that you're choosing the right path. That's why I wanted to share something I've been learning about called Liberty Health Share. It's not health insurance. It's a healthcare sharing ministry. which means you're joining a community of believers who come together to help carry one another's medical expenses. It's people living out the idea that we're stronger when we support each other and show up for one another. They offer programs for different stages of life and different budgets. So whether you're newly married, starting a family, or just looking for a better, more aligned approach, it's worth checking out. If you've been praying about a better way to navigate healthcare, this could be something to look into. You can learn more at libertyhealthshare.org. That's libertyhealthshare.org. Liberty Health Share, a force for good.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
You were talking a moment ago about tracing back family lineage and at least implicitly pointing to the kind of systemic structures that have then in time borne down on you individually. Obviously, as a white man, when I do that kind of work, it looks very, very different. One of the things that I did through decades of teaching as a professor was I would do a lot of research reading, take students on trips back to Alabama, Mississippi, Tuskegee, Selma, Jackson, Memphis. And we would just try to read, learn, understand. And one of the things that I began to realize was how little I think I knew about myself until I started doing that kind of work. And it was through that kind of historical work that I began to have a fuller sense of who I was and who I had come from, both for good and obviously for ill in various ways. But how would you say that doing your own sort of historical work has helped you have a greater sense of who you are?
I mean, I think that all of us, every single person in this so-called new world that's not indigenous, we're immigrants. We are part of a much greater human story of migration or forced displacement. And there's a deep resilience in all of our lineages, whatever they are. If you trace back even a few generations, your ancestors, everyone's ancestors, have endured times far harder than these. And I think it's really easy for us to get into, particularly at times of deep social and political and economic fracture, it's easy to fall into a kind of apathetic, nihilistic despair, sort of negativity bias response to it all. And I think when we do any kind of deep diving into ourselves as part of a lineage, as a culmination of a lineage or a continuance of a lineage, it prevents that because we start to realize people have endured and lived through and overcome far harder and far worse. And so, we need to continue that and not succumb to despair. And it's helpful to realize how interconnected we actually all are. Nobody's one thing. Some people are very, very fearful of what they consider other, and it's simply because they haven't done enough excavation work on their own history. There was a very interesting, I remember there was, I'm forgetting his name, but there was this virulently vocal white supremacist, and he was challenged to do his own DNA testing. And of course, he's like 33% sub-Saharan African, And he was like, didn't believe it. It's a lie. It's all a lie. But that was the truth of his genetic makeup, And the surface knee-jerk, fear-based kind of divide and conquer clubs don't stand a chance against real genealogical deep digs. That's what I'm gonna say. Once people realize the truth of that we are in fact one human species, deeply interconnected. If you trace us back far enough, we share a mother, It just kind of lays to rest all of that nonsense pretty quickly.
Allison here is talking about Craig Cobb, who was attempting to turn a small North Dakotan town into a white enclave back in 2013. He appeared on the British talk show Tricia, and agreed to have his DNA tested. The statistics are a little different to what Allison remembered, but the audio is too good not to play a little bit of that here. It's worth noting that Tricia, the host of the show, is a Black woman, as is the other guest, author and cultural commentator Dr. Yaba Blay, who you will hear laughing in the background.
Craig Paul Cobb has undergone DNA testing to determine genetic ancestry. 86% European and
Give it to him.
14% Sub-Saharan African.
Wait a minute.
Hey.
Hold on. Just wait a minute.
So,
This is called statistical noise.
sweetheart, you have a little black in you. as I
You said that you first met your Black family when you were 30?
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about?
My biological father and my mother met at a high school in Montreal called Montreal High, which no longer exists. But my mom's older brother, David, remembered my father. And when I was starting to get curious about my own genealogy, partially because my partner, JT, and I were getting more serious, and I knew that he wanted kids. I didn't think I would ever be a mother. But I thought, well, I should at least find out. And in my mind, it was like, it's just genetic curiosity to know health things on that side. Or I didn't even dare to imagine being in relationship with that person, even if I should find them. I wanted to know whatever I could find out, like physiologically almost, And my uncle dated a girl that went to the same church as one of my aunts by marriage. And he found her number. The Grenadian community is small. There's only about 350,000 Grenadians in the whole world. Grenada is, which is where my biological father is from. There's a strong French history and influence on the island. So a lot of Grenadians went to Quebec for schooling because at the time, Caribbean schools weren't acknowledged, in Canada or in the US, or that's changed for Caribbean students now. But at the time, if they wanted to better themselves through education, they had to go abroad. So my father, as a teen, went to Montreal to live with his older siblings and studied at Montreal High School, met my mom. They had a young relationship. He was back in Grenada before she even realized she was pregnant. Wow. So I had never met him. And my uncle David was able to find this old girlfriend who was also Grenadian, and through the Grenadian pipeline, which is tiny and convoluted and interconnected, she found a paternal aunt of mine. And then I got a call from my biological father about 2 weeks later. And I happened to be doing my last days of work in the downtown east side in Vancouver. I used to work for a nonprofit housing society called the Portland Hotel Society. And I was covering a shift for a friend who was also cooking for the residents, and I was not a cook. And so I was on one line with my maternal Aunt Barb, freaking out and figuring out how to make a roast for this group of people. and I get a call on the other line, and it's my biological father. And
amazing.
It's like, I'm so happy to hear from you. Can I call you back to finish this meal for these people? So yeah. And that's how it began. Huh. And I was in a band called Po Girl at the time, and we were touring all the time. And so we met for the first time at the Toronto airport and visited with them for a few days. And then they came to Montreal to the Jazz Fest with us as well. And that was the beginning of the relationship back in the day.
What would you say that you've learned about yourself through having that relationship
Well, I'm very
come
similar.
into your life?
What I've learned is that the things that you think are so unique to you, it's like, I appear to be like a carbon copy of my biological father. This is so bizarre, There's always the conversation of nature and nurture. It did make me understand that there is a strong dose of the nature that is beyond whatever nurturing happens or doesn't happen, that is a part of who we are as human beings. In that way, I think learning as much as we can about our ancestors is of value to anybody because they really are alive in us.
Yeah.
We really are carrying them forward.
So I have a friend who was reconnected with her biological family, and she was telling me recently that one of the things that she surprisingly has had to deal with was asking the what if question. That is, what if I had been raised in this family versus where I was raised? And I don't know, have you had to process any emotions around that?
The what if question is interesting for sure, but I think I've been more on a path of accepting that all of my history is a part of who I am. And my biological father is this lovely, wonderful, calm, gentle man. He's the total opposite of my adoptive father, who is violent and brutal and unself-aware and all of the things. So yes, of course, on paper and in all worlds, it would have been better to be raised by the nonviolent person. But we are more than the sum of our experiences, but the sum of our experiences is a part of who we are.
Yeah. Which brings us to Outside Child,
Yeah,
which you
that
mentioned a
was
moment ago.
Outside
So
Child,
this
yeah.
book, describe that. I think I read that was like a very intense 4-day recording session or something.
It was not intended to be a recording session, in a sense. I had been given a grant by the Canada Council for the Arts, but it was exactly enough money to pay for 4 days at Sound Emporium, which is a wonderful Cowboy Jack Clements old place that's now run by the fabulous Juanita Copeland.
Yes.
And many great records have been recorded there, including the fabulous Brittany Howard and Alabama Shakes, Sound and Color. And our friend Dan Nobler, Dan was producing the record, and we had 4 days, and we thought, oh yeah, we can knock out 11 songs in 4 days. And we did. And then we had 1 day of overdubs at his old studio, Goosehead Palace. And that was Outside Child. And, at the time, I was thinking of it as making a demo because I was very reluctant to step into my own name and story. And I didn't think much about it. At the time, I was touring with Birds of Chicago, which is my project with my partner, JT. And it was the lockdown that forced us to stop, of course, as it forced everyone to stop. Remember, it was like, it'll be a week, it'll be a month. And a year into it, we're like, well, we have this record. So let's try and do something with this record to keep the lights on and the food in the fridge. And
so you still had not released the record?
Into it. No.
Oh, okay.
I got sort of backed into shopping it around in the pandemic out of desperation, frankly.
Huh.
And I ended up getting signed, over Zoom in the middle of a lockdown. And when the world started coming back in real life in 2021, we began touring, and then that record was shockingly well received. And I do think part of why it was well received is that we were in the midst of processing trauma collectively.
Yeah. It seems you said kind of consistently that the album was not about trauma, but as much as maybe the journey out of it, right? Mm-hmm. Did you know when you were recording the album, this is me claiming agency, or how did that unfold?
The process of recording Outside Child was this joyful, cathartic, wonderful thing, but I didn't think of it as I'm stepping into my own name and agency yet. I had to be forced to that by the deprivation of the pandemic and the desperation of how are we going to provide for our kid? Because we didn't have savings to see us through 3 weeks, let alone 3 months, let alone a year. We were, as it turned out, working poor and thinking that we were better off than we actually were, which I think a lot of us discovered how close to food and housing insecurity we actually are in the pandemic. A lot of illusions ripped away during the pandemic. And sadly, other ones created. I think about all of the psychological warfare of what was going on online in that time. Well, we've seen the evolution of QAnon into the far right today. We've seen the eroding of people's trust or even ability to discern what's factual from what's propaganda and what's fake and what's AI and what's, bots just pushing them to be the worst versions of themselves. It's fascinating how much that all the petri dish of the lockdown and how that, I don't know, the whole process was sped up. I don't think we're going to know for years the full fallout, to be honest.
I think one of the things that is so striking to me about you is how you seem to have chosen joy. And then even as you go into your next album, The Returner, it seems to be this simultaneously acknowledgement of pain in various ways throughout the album, and yet claiming joy. How do you practice that personally?
I think they always coexist. That's the gift. None of us is getting through this brief mortal life without experiencing a lot of pain and trauma. That's just part of it. And I think I've been lucky in that because music has been the thread that carries me through and that has been my primary mode of expression my whole life. It's an antidote to completely wallowing in despair. And I think I've followed my ears and I've followed my intuition, and I've gone toward what makes me feel hopeful. And then, of course, then becoming a mom, I have to try to keep choosing joy and hope. And James Baldwin taught us long ago, all the children are our children. He never had children of his own body, so to speak, biological children, but he knew that all the grownups on the planet were parenting all the babies on the planet and that we're responsible for them, you know? And having my own, going through motherhood, carrying her and birthing her has reinforced that even more for me. You know, I always recognized it and felt it before, but it did for me go to a different level with the physical experience of motherhood. Part of it, too, is when I was living in Vancouver and working at the Portland Hotel Society, we were a housing agency that housed those who we were considered low threshold, meaning the folks that we housed were dual diagnosis, had a mental health diagnosis and an addiction. We were the only stability often in some of their lives. And it was a real community. And the guiding principle was harm reduction. It wasn't about, you know, there was certain housing where people, if they were using, they would get kicked out. If they were not adhering to whatever the religious denomination was, they would get kicked out. Our housing was, everybody deserves a home no matter what. Meaning what I think is a basic human principle of everybody deserves a place to live and to be safe in that place. And it was transformative for me to work there. I got hired when I was 18 or 19, so I was one of the youngest people they'd ever hired. And they hired me because of my family experience, because of what I had lived in my own family. My mom is schizophrenic and has battled with substances her whole life and been unable to stay on medication her whole life. And so I had this lived experience that would help me treat our residents as human beings, you know? And so I got hired. And that job for me was, first of all, stability, financial stability, which I'd never had. In that time when I was working that job, I charged my adoptive father. My baby brother came to live with me. He finished his schooling with me. It stabilized my life to work there. It just deeply ingrained the principle of harm reduction in my mind, and that we don't do each other or ourselves any favors by having reactive, harsh judgments or assuming. It is not enabling someone to make sure they have a safe home. It is saying you're a human being and you deserve loving kindness because you're a human being, whatever else is going on in your life, and you deserve a place to live. Like, I personally don't want to be part of a society that thinks it's okay for people to die on the street. And I think most of us don't, actually. And we get tricked into believing that it's somehow harmful to take care of each other. You know, like in the US, people are so terrified of the word socialism, right? Or anything that smacks of we're giving handouts, but it's not handouts. There's a tiny percentage of our population that for various reasons need extra help. And we have all the resources and I think all the will to give that extra help. And I think most people do. And it's just a matter of figuring out how to find the common ground to do that collectively. There are so many forces currently with the way negativity bias works in our own brains and online. You know, negativity bias online is rewarded. It's clickbait. It is overrepresented online. To me, it is a distortion. It is not the reality actually of who we are, but it appears to be. Like, you would not be faulted for assuming that it is if you just took a glance online at any time. It's like a funhouse mirror. And part of what I'm so addicted to with live performance in various ways is that in real life, we can't fall prey to that. It's like the show we did the other day. We are feeling things in real life. We are speaking to one another in real life. There's no way for it to be distorted. We experience it as it is, and we feel each other as we actually are. And it's extremely difficult to dehumanize someone that you're sitting face to face with. It's really easy to dehumanize someone online or remotely. As we've seen, people will say and behave in ways online that they never would in real life. And it's a skewed distortion, and it's a bad habit, and we can break bad habits. Everybody used to smoke. Now very few people smoke because we learned that it's really harmful. There didn't used to be such thing as seatbelts. And then when seatbelts were introduced, there was massive protests against seatbelts. But now most people wear a seatbelt. And I do think it can be the same with our online culture. Like now it's still the norm to say horrific things to other people online and behave badly. But in 20 years, we'll look back and go, oh, I can't believe we used to be like that, you know, hopefully. We can modify and change. We can apply the principle of harm reduction to whatever it is we're doing.
Yeah. Coming up is a short break, followed by our discussion on anger, forgiveness, and you'll hear some live performances from Allison as well.
And we're live on match day as Doug reaches for a buffalo wing. He's got it! Oh, and he's gone for a can of Pepsi too! What a finish! There's no doubt about it. It just tastes better. Match days deserve Pepsi.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
Do I understand correctly that another sort of complication that has informed your own approach to thinking about the things you were just talking about is that you realize that your adoptive father was also abused as a child?
My adoptive father, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I mean, almost all abusers were abused. That's a statistical fact. And I think therein can be the seeds for compassion and for forgiveness. Forgiveness is so tricky and so hard, but I actually think it's the only way to free ourselves from that wheel, that cycle, that endless cycle of abuse. And I don't mean forgiveness as a form of not holding people accountable, but I had to let go of fury and anger. It was just making me sick. You know, it wasn't for him, it was for me. I know what it feels like to want to do violence to someone. I wanted to kill that man. I really did. But if I had killed that man, we wouldn't be sitting here talking. I wouldn't be a mother. I wouldn't be writing songs. I'd be rotting in a jail somewhere. And he would have won, you know? My life would be as miserable as his. So turning away from violence, I don't mean it in any kind of Pollyannish way. I mean, it's like survival. If we don't break those cycles, if we fall into vengeance, if we live by vengeance, then there is only premature death and misery and violence in store for us. And there's no way to free ourselves of that cycle if we do what was done to us.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, going back to what you were saying a moment ago about villainizing, I think I also read, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I also read something to the effect that you had indicated that even the language that we might use of someone that does atrocious things, to call someone a monster, for example.
Yeah, people aren't monsters.
That robs us of our own agency.
Yeah.
Which I think that's very helpful. But unpack that for us a bit more.
I think it also robs us of truth, of self-knowledge, that everybody is capable of horrific acts. Everybody is. I think we have to dig in on specifics. What stops someone? What stops someone from doing the horrific thing? We need to learn more about that. What are the ways that we shore up our spirits, psyches, beings, whatever you want to call it, to not succumb to the worst of our natures? How do we keep the better angels ascendant? And for me, like I strongly identify art and having the release and the succor and the refuge of art, you know, at any given stage of my whole life, including now, has kept me from ever kind of falling into the worst possible scenario. It might be different things for different people, but I think art is a big one for humanity in general. There's a reason that we call the humanities, you know, like there's a reason for it. And you don't have to become a professional artist for it to be of value in your life, to learn to express oneself musically or to journal, to write down whatever like is bubbling up that feels overwhelming, to write it down rather than acting upon whatever those big feelings are, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of they're a monster talk doesn't help anything because they're not. That's a human being that might have committed a monstrous act, but that's still a human being. And now we have to figure out what causes one human being to do that and what stops another from doing it. And how do we shore up what stops us from doing it?
Two relatively quick questions as we close. One, I wonder what sort of daily practices, you mentioned journaling, but what kind of daily practices keep you grounded, keep you hopeful, keep you practicing harm reduction in the world?
Movement is huge, and going outside. We're here in East Nashville, and I take our rescue dog Millie to Shelby Bottoms every single day. And we will, particularly while I've been excavating this memoir, I've been doing a lot of dictation while walking. Movement for me is huge for the creative process as well, like both songwriting and book writing. So I will take Millie sometimes for 11 miles, 15 miles through the Greenway and the Shelby Bottoms. And there's nothing to me more restorative, limbic system calming, cortisol reducing, serotonin boosting than walking through nature and remembering and feeling and breathing and being a part of it. Like we're part of it. We're not above it.
Yeah.
We're part of it.
Yeah.
You know, we're like plants too.
Right.
If we don't get enough sun and we don't get enough air and movement, like we suffer. I've practiced yoga for 20 years, which has been really grounding and important to me. I'm a runner. I do distance running because that calms my monkey brain down, makes it shut up for a second, you know, like when you can't find peace between your own ears, just go for a run until it calms down. So like, definitely daily movement.
The show that we got to do together, No Small Endeavor Live at the Scrimmorn Symphony Hall here in Nashville back the Sunday night before last Thanksgiving, was wonderful to have you. And I was listening back through mixes of that here recently. The two moments I teared up listening to those mixes, one was you invited several of us to sing with you on Requiem.
La haine est enterrée, hate is buried. L'heure du miracle est née, the hour of miracles is born. L'amour est éternel, love is eternal. Courage, mes beaux, mes belles, take courage. For it is yours to sing. Oh, my child, my world brightly. Oh, the lover in the cradle of time.
Yes.
And we had a big choir behind us, but you asked 3 or 4 of us also to kind of sing on the chorus of that. And it's such a moving song. You know, so much of what we've talked about today is in that song, especially holding together deep sorrow and joy and the grief and yet hopeful possibilities.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that during that performance on stage, I was choking up and couldn't hardly sing with tears running down my face because it's such a beautiful, powerful anthem for us. And I just thank you for it. The other occasion when I teared up was listening to the mixes was For 20 years now, we've done this old spiritual, the welcome table.
Here we go now. I'm gonna sit at the welcome table. I'm gonna sit at the welcome table. What a day, hallelujah. I'm gonna sit at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table. What a day. Sing it, Walker. I'm gonna sing.
Yeah.
As the last song in those big shows. And of course we did that night. You singing the last two choruses, which was just so delightful. And I don't know, there was something about that beautiful moment and the resonance of all of that and what that song means, I think. We're all longing to be welcomed, aren't we?
Absolutely.
And we're all longing to sit down with each other and to know what it means to be human together.
To be welcome, to belong.
Yeah. That seems to be central to kind of what you're helping us with.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the work that we're all called to do, I think embodied in this brief time here on this planet, is figure out how to be together in better and better ways.
Yeah.
You know?
And with the dogs, too.
And with the dogs, too. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's been delightful to be with you. And thank you for your good work in the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
And thank you for having us to your home.
It's my pleasure.
You've been listening to No Small Endeavor and our interview with Grammy-winning singer and songwriter Allison Russell on her breakthrough solo album Outside Child and her upcoming memoir. If you missed a portion of this interview or would like to have access to the complete unabridged version, you can follow our podcast wherever you listen. We gratefully acknowledge the support of Lilly Endowment Incorporated, a private philanthropic foundation supporting the causes of community development, education, and religion. Thanks to all the stellar team that makes this show possible. Christy Bragg, Jacob Lewis, Carriot Harmon, Jason Sheasley, Sophie Byard, Kate Hayes, Mary Evelyn Brown, and Audrey Griffith. Our theme song was composed by Tim Lauer. Our music director for the performance you're hearing now was Simon Martinson. Thanks for listening, and let's keep exploring what it means to live a good life together. No Small Endeavor is a production of Tokens Media LLC and
Great Feeling Studios.